Hey, I'm Mia Hemstad. I'm a wife, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I'm a trauma-informed self-care coach. I also live with diagnosed PTSD and depression. I started sharing my mental wellness journey online in 2017 when I was diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety. And since then, I've heard from hundreds of women who all struggle with the same thing, putting ourselves last. This is a struggle that's keeping so many women burned out and unhappy, through no fault of our own, by the way. I've been working on my own healing as an abuse survivor since 2013. But when I became a mom, I really started to do the inner work of figuring out why I was putting myself last and how to start prioritizing myself for the first time in my life. This podcast is about sharing all of those lessons with you. So if you're interested in hearing honest stories, life advice, and inspiration that encourages you to make your health, happiness, and well-being a priority, then definitely stick around. Welcome to your No Longer Last journey. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mia Hemstad. I am a mom of 2 and a wife, and I moved from the United States to Portugal in 2022. That was 3 years ago. Today I want to be sharing with you the top 3 mistakes I made when I moved. I've had some time to reflect, and I definitely have learned some lessons. And I have a few other videos about my move to Portugal, why I moved, and things you should know if you want to move yourself, and I'll link that playlist down in the description. So diving right in, the first mistake that I made when I moved here was I did not hire tax attorneys who understood the tax law in Portugal and the US and how those laws worked together in order to advise me on the best way to do tax planning. I think, first of all, I grew up in a family that didn't talk about finances or taxes in general. I remember when I got my first W-2 in the United States, I was working at an eye clinic, as a receptionist, and I remember being very confused what this tax document was. I didn't know what I needed to do with it. I had no idea what taxes were or what my responsibilities were. I kind of grew up in the bush in Guam. It's a U.S. territory near the Philippines, but basically just grew up very financially illiterate. So I just didn't think that I needed to do this. And now I know, after making a lot of mistakes, that having an understanding of what your tax responsibilities are to the United States and to Portugal can save you a lot of headache. I work with a firm called Fresh Portugal. I think that's their name. I think they changed their name. I'll link it below. But they are definitely on the pricier side, but they have incredible knowledge of both the US and Portuguese tax systems and how they work together. And I have found working with them really, really good. So I'm going to try to reach out to them and see if they can offer my audience a discount code of some sort. And if I do get that, I'll put it in the description. So look there for more information. But yes, if you're planning on moving abroad or you want to understand what it would look like from a tax perspective, it's really important before you leave your home country to try to get a tax consultation in and to get an understanding of what that looks like. The second mistake I made was I took forever to get my health number. So your national health number is basically like the number that you get from the National Health Association. I don't know. It's basically like health insurance, but through the government, and it enables you to get healthcare anywhere, particularly at public clinics and public hospitals. I took a long time to get my health number because the requirements to getting it were a little bit challenging, but I wish I had made it my focus sooner, just because it just gives you so much peace of mind knowing that you have this health number so that no matter where you are in the country, you can go to any public hospital or clinic and get medical care. This came in handy a few days ago because I got a migraine. I get migraines every month, and I took a new medication and I had a severe allergic reaction, and I think I was going to go into anaphylactic shock. So we called the ambulance and they arrived right away, and they asked me, do you have your health number? And thank goodness I had it. And I got taken to the hospital. I got triaged. I got a steroid shot. I got evaluated by the doctor. And the bill was $0. I know a lot of Americans love to say that healthcare in Europe is free. Nothing is free. Taxes here are very high, but I personally am okay with paying high taxes if it means that everyone in the country gets to have access to healthcare and gets to be as healthy as they possibly can be, because when everyone in your society is as healthy as they can be, the society just functions so much better. People are happier, kinder. And I honestly think the lack of accessible healthcare is one of the many reasons why people in the United States just seem to be getting more and more violent. but I digress. So yeah, it was incredible to get immediate medical care. And I knew that it was going to be cheap to $0. And that's why I didn't hesitate to call the ambulance. And I hate to think that if I was in the US, even if I was going into anaphylactic shock, struggling to breathe, having an allergic reaction, fearing for my life, I probably would have not called the ambulance. I probably would have had my husband drive me to the hospital. I probably would have second guessed whether or not it was bad enough, if I really needed to go, because one time I did have to take my son to the ER and I drove him, and it still cost me so much money with private insurance that it took me 2 years to pay it off. So I just really hate that in the United States, we have to make those kinds of decisions around our health, when in reality, if you are having a health issue, you should get medical attention right away and not deliberate about whether or not it's going to make you bankrupt or cause you to be homeless. So I wish I got my health number sooner. The requirements of getting it can vary depending on what city you live in, what town you live in. And requirements just change year to year based on the laws changing. So I don't like to give advice of what you need to get your health number. I think look into it if you move here, but don't wait around. It's really not that scary. I think as Americans, we tend to avoid medical and healthcare situations because of our financial trauma related to living in the United States. But yes, I wish I did that sooner. And then the last thing that I messed up on was not taking initiative to learn the language sooner. I mean, yes, it's true that most of my interactions are in English, and people in Portugal do speak English very well and very often, and they will switch to English if they notice you're an English speaker. And I also live in an area where there's a lot of US and British tourists, so a lot of the people in this area specifically do speak English. That being said, though, it is a sign of respect to know the language and to speak the language. And there are always going to be people that still only speak Portuguese, and that is fine and good. This is their country and it's the national language. And then there's just occasions where, for instance, when I was in the ambulance a few days ago, one of the paramedics did speak English, but one of the paramedics didn't. And I remember that paramedic was asking me, how's your breathing? Are you feeling okay? What's going on? And I was able to understand what he was saying and speak to him in Portuguese. And it's because I finally, as of a year ago, started taking the learning of the language more seriously. And I just remember feeling so grateful that I have been learning the language, because here I was in an emergency situation and I was able to communicate. And just imagine if it was my kid and I wasn't able to speak to him. What if it was my baby that needed something and I wasn't able to speak to a paramedic in Portuguese? So it's just really important, I think, to learn the language and to understand that learning a language can't happen overnight. And honestly, the reason why I avoided it for so long is because, well, first of all, my only experience with learning a second language was in high school. And so it was very much structured, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I had Spanish class. I had a tutor or a teacher telling me what I needed to know. I had a textbook, I had homework, I had quizzes. There was so much structure around it. And then all of a sudden, you don't have that structure and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. And to be honest, I just couldn't afford to go to classes. Classes are very affordable, but as I've said in other videos, we are a family of four living on one income. So I couldn't afford classes. And so that's the only way I knew how to learn a language. So I just kind of avoided it. And I tried, podcasts and I tried YouTube videos, but I was kind of just struggling with the lack of structure. And so there's actually an app that I found. It's called Practice Portuguese, and it's European Portuguese, which I find to be very helpful because I live in Portugal, not in Brazil and other Portuguese speaking countries. And this app is 15 euros a month, and it's very structured, very organized. And I honestly only do 15 minutes a day. I work multiple jobs. I run a business and I work full time as a communications director at a nonprofit. I'm a mom of two, and I also live with chronic illnesses. So I don't have a lot of time or energy. And I think that's why I also was scared to learn, because I felt like it was going to be this multiple hours a week commitment. But when I just kind of distilled it down to, okay, what do I actually have? What are the time and the energy that I do have going for me, the resources that I do have going for me? Stop fixating on the classes you can't afford. Stop fixating on the hours you don't have. What do you have and how can I work with that? When I focus on that, I realize that I have time when I have my morning coffee. I set a timer for 15 minutes. I open my Practice Portuguese app and I go through that stuff. And honestly, a lot of the vocabulary that I have learned from that app came in handy when I was in the ambulance. I was able to communicate that I had a migraine, that I had an allergic reaction, that I was having, pain, or that my breathing was okay though, and all of this stuff, that I had a health number, that I lived here for 3 years, and all of this stuff. And it's just, I was so grateful to pass me a year ago for deciding that I'm going to pay for this app, invest 15 minutes a day. And if you think that's not enough time to learn a language, honestly, it's been great. I have been able to carry on conversations. My listening has been getting better. So don't let perfectionism get in the way of you learning the language. If you are going to move to a foreign country, if you're going to move to a country where where the national language is anything other than English, I highly encourage you to invest whatever you do have available to you into learning the language. It's not only a sign of respect, it's going to help you go further in the country. So those are the 3 mistakes that I made. Again, for additional videos and resources, and hopefully a discount code for the tax professionals that I work with here, they're amazing. Check the description for that information. And thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in more content like this, just leave in the comments what questions you have. I also am a self-care coach for moms, so I make a lot of content around living a no longer last life, which means living a life where you prioritize your health, happiness, and well-being using the time, energy, and resources that you have available to you. I hope I will see you next time, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.